Hey there, hikers. It's Sloth again, out for another overnight hike with my partner Dreamer. She's manning the camera as usual. And we're at Cass today, and this is the best sign we've seen that has actual dotted line of the Allegheny Trail. And Cass is right here, right at this dirty spot. Now, as we said last hike, or the end of the last bike run, we're halfway through the sections. However, mileage-wise, we're only about a third of the way, maybe slightly more than a third of the way. So we've still got a ways to go. Cass, today we're starting at Cass, and we're headed up toward Durbin. And in this section, it's a historical section. It's actually a state park here. They have a train like they use to haul timber, and they allow tourists to come along and purchase tickets, and they take you up the scenic trail route, and it goes from here up into the mountains and all that. There's also another train that's privately run in Durbin that we saw earlier this morning. We're going for about 18, hopefully no more than 18 miles on our overnight, so we'll see you out on the trail. Thought this might be a good point to do a little reminiscing. When we started this, and it was way back in April, and the leaves weren't on the trees and all that, we started on Peters Mountain. And we had it easy for the first 16 miles or so, because it just went straight out the mountain. We were on the ridge line most of the way, and it was easy walking, not a whole lot of elevation gain or loss. The section we did before we hit the Greenbrier Trail, that was probably our most challenging as far as elevation gain and loss. And it happened, like we mentioned before, almost like a roller coaster. So it was quite challenging. It was a little more challenging than what we had been used to before. And also, I wanted to mention the Greenbrier Trail. People may not be familiar with that, but it's a rails to trail section, and it's a nice section that starts in Caldwell, West Virginia, and it comes up a very easy grade. It's like a 2% grade. That's why people can ride it with a bike. They hike it. Occasionally you'll see horses out there, and along the river quite often you'll see people in kayaks or tubes or canoes when the water's up high enough. So it's just a great, beautiful scenic trail. I also wanted to comment that this is a hiking video, probably unlike most that you see. A lot of times you'll see people through hiking and they go straight through, and they do it in a few weeks or several months depending on the length of the trail. And we've chopped up hours, and we've tried to show you a little variety of what's available. You know, you can do day hikes, or you can do it overnight, or you can do a longer section, which we'll try to be doing later on this week. On the Greenbrier Trail, you could come along and ride the bike or ride a horse, or you could walk it just like we've been doing before. And we've showed you some extra techniques and exploring things, like when we went through the tall grass and had the bags on our feet to keep the ticks off. That was a limited success. It did keep it off our shoes, but the bags were so short that they didn't prevent the ticks from crawling up our top of our socks or up our legs, so that was kind of disappointing. And the good news is that it didn't really affect our traction at all. Our traction wasn't adversely affected. Maybe a slight decrease in traction. Looks like we've hit our high point for today, and we're slowly descending down to the Laurel Creek. And got a smooth carpet of moss here. It's really nice to walk on. You can just about go barefoot on it. We won't tempt fate though, but it's really nice. And it looks like we've avoided the storm so far. Maybe another one will roll up, but right now we look like we're in good shape. So all is well. Okay, we decided to take a little break. We were trying to get out so we could see the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. That's to our east over here. There's supposed to be some spectacular views along here, and we could see it through the woods, but nothing that was really good enough to take video of or even still pictures. We were hoping to get to a clear area and have lunch there, but there's a storm behind us. Skies are a little bit dark. Rumbling of thunder. We don't know if it's going to catch up with us or not, but we decided to eat now, so if we have to put on our raincoats and ponchos later on, then we'll just do that and trudge on until we make camp this evening. So that's where we're at right now. It's about 20 minutes after 2 in the afternoon, and we're probably over halfway to what our goal is today, so we're doing pretty good. We'll see you down the trail. Okay, we did things a little bit different today. Our water source was at about the halfway point, but it was down in a very dark hollow, a lot of rhododendron, a lot of moisture. It rained a little bit this afternoon, and everything was damp. And it's kind of depressing to be down there, and everything was muddy and all that type of thing. And we just decided to eat beside the water, where we had plenty of water to clean up with and filter for our food, and we ate there. Then we packed up and continued on. We went another mile, maybe a little bit further, so we could get up to elevation. And up here, the air is moving a little bit. It did not rain as much, and it's just not as humid. We did put up the tarp. It's the first time we've done that on an overnight. And got the hammocks in under. Hopefully we won't need it, but we've got it if it does rain. And tomorrow we'll only have maybe 8 miles to get back to finish, and we'll try to get an early start and knock that out. So we did pretty good today. We did about 10 miles, maybe a little bit better. So we'll see you in the morning. Good morning. I thought we'd take a look at our setup here, and it is a work in progress. We're still trying to get it dialed in. This is kind of unique. It's not exclusive by any means, but what we do is we have two hammocks side by side hanging off the same trees, and we cover it with one tarp. And we don't have a lot of experience doing this. I've done solo in this tarp fairly well, and it gives good coverage then. It takes a little different technique when you got two people under there. And one of the things we do, we have a guy line on top, and these prusik knots allow you to adjust where the tarp is. It will slide in one direction if you push it, but then if you pull it, it doesn't slide. So you can tighten up your tarp over top of the hammocks. Now, I've already taken my hammock down, but I'll go ahead and fold this back. Dream, I surprised her with a new hammock last night. This is a Dutch Wear Chameleon. It's got a bug screen on it, so it weighs a little more, but it's a little more comfortable. And she's got these straps here that are a little easier to set up, so she can do this on her own. I've been messing with the other type of straps. Now, another thing on this, there's a hole in the buckle, and we have a little pole that goes in between here, and on my setup there's also a fastener with a hole, and it separates the head of the hammock so that people don't bump into one another. It gives you just enough room so you can lay down in it without interfering with the other person. So that's how we were able to tie onto the same tree and still be comfortable in the hammock. Alright, let her hammock down now. The rest of the tarp is just staked out similar to a tent. And the good thing about a tarp is you can adjust it up so it's a little bit higher. When you're in a hammock, it's good to have the adjustment so that you can set it up higher depending on how high your hammock is. If you want to set up, or if the weather's bad, you could put it down really low to protect from the sideways rains and things like that. But it's just a little bit different from tent camping. Now, years and years ago, even though I was a younger man, I realized that tent camping made it very hard to sleep because everything was stiff in the morning. After you'd hike 10 or 12 miles and then looking forward to another 10 or 12, you don't want to be stiff in the morning. And in the past few years, I've become a fan of hammock camping. It's still a poor second to tent camping as far as backpackers are concerned, but as far as the quality of sleep, I sleep far better. I wake up with much less stiffness. And Dreama was surprised that when she tried it, she could get up and she wasn't real sore in the morning either. Now, I've gone to the extreme where I sleep in a hammock all the time. I don't even have a bed anymore. I haven't got Dreama to buy into that theory, but she's more than happy to sleep in a hammock when we're out backpacking. As you can see, it's misty this morning, and last night I predicted we wasn't going to see any rain, and I was 100% wrong. As soon as I got into the hammock, I started hearing the drips on the tarp, and I scrambled up and moved all our other gear under the tarp so it wouldn't get wet. Food bags in a waterproof sack, so that wasn't a big deal. I left it hanging in the tree. But even if it hadn't rained, as misty as it is this morning, we would have been soaked. So we're going to finish tearing down camp, and we should be on trail in 15 or 20 minutes. And when it lightens up and we got some views, we'll see you on the trail. Alright, we finished up another overnight, a little bit over 18 miles, and we started out strong this morning, but the last few miles kicked our butts. It was a lot of slick areas on the downhill, and it's also a horse trail, so whenever it rains, the horses really keep things churned up, and we had to be very careful about not taking a spill. We came close a couple of times. Steep descent at the end, and it comes to the east fork of the Greenbrier River, and we're in the town of Durbin. And like Cass, it does have a railroad. It has a private railroad out there, and on the other end of town there's a state-run railroad. It's the scenic tours that they give on the weekends. Yesterday we saw the locomotive running and got a few pictures of that. We had a good time. We didn't see nearly as much bear sign this trip, not a lot of animals at all. Weather didn't hit us too hard. We had the rain last night, and the temperatures weren't bad. It was humid coming down today, but all in all it was a good trip. So we're slowly eating away at the trail, and we'll finish up at some point. See you down the trail.